This is Noah from Spanky the Sparky. Today we have a special guest in the name of Diarmid Campbell out of IBEW Local 520 in San Angelo, Texas. Mr. Campbell, how's it going?
It's going good. Thank you.
Well, first and foremost, like I like to do at the beginning of all these, I want to take the time to say thank you. I believe these conversations are important for transparency into the trades, specifically into the union trades, because in my personal opinion, I think there's a lot of misinformation that's kind of spread around, and hopefully these conversations can put an end to that, and hopefully it can inspire someone to join the trade. And I think it's just as important to deter them away from the trade. Maybe they see this and like, the trade's not for me. I think that's just as important. But regardless, thank you in advance for taking the time out of your day to do this.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. To begin with, just give me a little, or give everyone a little insight on yourself. I just said you're from Local 520, but give a little insight on yourself, how you got into the trades, where you sit in your specific local, anything you feel comfortable with.
Okay, yeah, sure. So I am out in West Texas. We're out here in San Angelo. Our parent sister local is in Austin. We got big jurisdictions out this way, so we cover a lot of miles. With that being said, I am going on this February 14th, 8 years in the union.
Nice.
This October 18th, it'll actually be 8 years as an organizer, assistant business agent.
Awesome.
I was organized in through the CE route, but the majority of my time has been as an organizer and assistant business agent for the local out here in San Angelo.
That's awesome. I actually started as a CW. I came from the non-union side, but I started as a CW, went into the apprenticeship. For those that aren't familiar with a CE or CW, how would you break that down? Because a lot of people think you have to join join the union as an apprentice. I think that's a misconception. But what's a CE from your standpoint?
So with that just means construction electrician, right? And so when I'm talking to individuals, this is how I break it down. If you're coming at me and you're completely green, maybe have a year in the trade, I'm going to promote that apprenticeship route, right? You're going to learn the whys and hows behind what we do. But now you come in, and this is what we run into out here in West Texas, and I'm sure in a lot of areas. But the apprenticeship was never an option for a lot of individuals out here. So if they come in and they got 5 or more years, or they're about to test for their journeymans, I then promote the CE route, right? I don't want an individual to take a pay cut or have to step back when the state of Texas is about to recognize their hours and all that. So that's pretty much it. You come to me green, apprenticeship all the way. If you got time in the trade and you're about to test for that license, we're just going to go ahead with the CE route.
And I think that's something that, in my opinion, there's obviously different ways of thinking about it. Everyone's going to think a little differently, but a lot of people are under the assumption, if you're going from non-union, jumping into the union, that you're going to take a massive pay cut. From my own experience, from the people I've been around, like you just kind of said, you can be placed into those positions as a CE, possibly a CW, I guess, but more so a CE, where you're either going to usually start at the same rate that you were at, or most of the times a little higher. And I think that's something that's kind of not misinterpreted, but just a portion of misinformation that's kind of put out there.
Yes, yeah. No, everyone that comes in, we evaluate them, and they have a chance to make more money than where they were at. We never try to make them have less. So yeah, we're gonna bring you in and try to get you as much as we can right at that top.
And I know you said you've been organized in for 8 years. What did your early career look like, I guess, before joining the union or becoming an assistant business agent or organizer? What did your early career look like?
So it's kind of funny, right? I originally went to school for HVAC.
Nice.
I lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma for a while. That's what I went to school for. I was working with a company. I'm actually about to test for my journeymans. I was dually licensed. The company I worked for had a plumbing section, so HVAC and plumbing. Bad breakup brought me back out this way. Couldn't find anyone to reciprocate my license, so I fell into the oil field.
Yeah.
Through that, then met a friend and fell into the electrical side. And just been a natural transition from there. Was able to get introduced to the union and just loved it and saw that what a difference it was, and how much better it could be and it should be.
I fully agree.
So that was kind of my journey into the IBEW. Honestly, it was all by chance, really.
For myself as well, I worked non-union, and the turning point for me, I mean, there was multiple things that led up to it, but I watched two full-grown guys nearly duke it out in the parking lot over some just heinous things, and I was like, yeah, this isn't going to work. And I was making $12 an hour, no benefits, and I was like, this isn't worth what's happening. By a twist of fate, I ended up applying to my local union, and then the rest is history from there. Uh, Having worked in the field, was there a specific moment when you realized, like, yeah, I want to be more involved in my local? Coming from the non-union side, I feel like a lot of people just get into the field. They don't really see a broader picture that's like, oh, I just got to work on my tools. You going from non-union to union, working in the field, and then I guess getting into I call it the office-related positions or business organizing. What made you want to be more involved? Was it, I guess, did something strike your interest? Did someone approach you?
Early on, I had the organizer that used to come down here and would host the meetings, a gentleman named Mike King. He was kind of my mentor early on just because I saw the passion that he had. I come from a union family, right? My dad was a A&P mechanic for American Airlines out in Tulsa, Oklahoma, so he was on the union side. And then my stepfather, he dealt with unions on the management side through GTE, which later became Verizon.
Oh, nice.
So I always knew about unions. I've always had an interest in them. I've agreed with them. And when I was working in the field, when we did get absorbed, we were in a process of regrowing and having a restructure. And I knew that if we wanted to make this work out here, I needed to get active. And I just started on my own initiative, talking to contractors, starting to set up meetings with the local community college about trying to bring an apprenticeship back. And the organizer, Mike King, and some other individuals took notice.
That's awesome.
And we had elections. A new BA came in, and I got a call. And he said, hey, how would you like to step in and try to turn San Angelo around? And I said, let's do it, right? So
awesome.
Here I am then.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think it's important that people take those initiatives and want to do better, because I feel like, I guess from kind of an outsider's perspective, having worked non-union, if you've only worked in the union, you just kind of see all the good. You don't really, there's not really much bad, but you've never worked non-union to see the bad, so you just think that's the expectation. But there's a lot of moving parts behind the scenes that go into giving us all those, I guess, added benefits, the higher pay, everything. So I think it's important that people like you and many others step into those positions and kind of take the bull by the horns and run with it. So that's awesome. For those that, I mean, I've even talked to people in my local union that aren't fully certain on what an organizer is. What, like, if you had to break that down, what would you say an organizer is, at least in the IBEW?
So, in all reality, right, that's kind of the beauty of an organizer is anyone can be it, right? Now, you do have the organizers that are in the office, but then you have the VOC, right, your volunteer organizing committee. And really, an organizer is just a member who is out there talking to union or non-union about the benefits and what it's like to be union, right? When I hit a job site, that's what I'm talking to that individual about. I'm asking them, hey, do you like your conditions? Do you have a say? If not, there is a better way. So that's kind of the beauty of that position is anyone can be an organizer. It's just you communicating to that individual and showing them that there is a better way and that you as a worker have a say in your conditions and your labor. Because without you, that job's not getting done. We need our contractors, yes. Without them, we're not working. But without us, they're not getting the job done. And we should have that say. So to me, that's what an organizer is just spreading that union gospel.
I actually just spoke with a gentleman yesterday out of local 479 in Beaumont, Texas, and a lot of the things you just mentioned are exactly what he had mentioned. So I think it's interesting to see the overlap, especially being at least in the same state. Leading into that, as Texas is a right to work state, how does that change the way organizing engagement works compared to non right to work states? Obviously, I don't know if you've done any organizing in a non right to work state, but what are some of the challenges you face in a right to work state?
So I've never done any organizing in a non-right to work,
Yeah,
but right to work, it's one of those things, right? It's that kind of catch 22 for me. I like it as a blessing, and then I don't, right? I like it as a blessing because I like a challenge. If something was easy, why would I want it?
exactly.
Right? Give me that fight and let me show you that this is worth it. Of course, why I don't like it is we can go into the origins of right to work, especially here in Texas, where the individual that I believe coined that phrase was a reporter out of Dallas, and he all days to do it. He did it on Labor Day, right? And to me, all right to work is just a way to screw the worker over. But it is that challenge, and it makes us have to think outside the box. And that is one of those benefits I think coming in from that CE world, is because I've got to see both sides. So when I talk to that individual, I can tell them, "Hey, I've been where you're at, and there is something better." So I'm wanting to get right to work abolished here in Texas. That is like one of my goals.
Yeah,
But it's a challenge, and I look forward to a challenge because when you overcome it, it makes that victory just so much sweeter. So you just got to think outside the box and pivot and move. Get creative with what you do, right? A go F yourself is not a no.
no, that's true.
So,
And going off of the right to work aspect, I don't know the exact statistics or percentages. I do know these are factually backed. I just don't know the exact percentages. But in right to work state or non right to work states, the rates of pay are statistically higher, and safety wise, statistically speaking, it's safer to work in right to work states or non right to work states. It's not saying you can't get high wages in right to work states or it's highly unsafe otherwise, but the stats and statistics do show that. So, like you said, though, I think it's awesome that your goal is to get right to work out of Texas. So that's awesome. What are some of the biggest misconceptions you have, not that you have, but workers have in West Texas when you first approach them about the union?
so out here, right, that is kind of that unique spot is you got to watch how you approach individuals out here. And I always try to keep it about the labor, right? Because at the end of the day, we may differ on a lot of things, but if you wake up in the morning to go to work and you put your pants on one leg at a time like I do, and you're trying to better your family and yourself, then that's the issue we can come together on. And a lot of the misconceptions I get being in a little West Texas town, right, is that we want to burn the establishment down. We're here to overthrow everything and, have horses eat the children and all of that. And that's not it, right? I'm here to protect an industry because where I'm at, wage theft, licensing violations, the good old boy system, it runs rampant. And when I talk to these individuals, they're like, well, all you're going to do is this and that. And it's like, no. What I can show you what the union has done here in Angelo is recovered over $25,000 in stolen wages for non-union contractors that didn't cost them a dime because we knew that they deserved better and we wanted to protect an industry. What the union has done for you out here is it's brought formal complaints against the city because the inspector won't check licensing and is kicking side work to unlicensed individuals. That's what I try to sell, and those are some of the misconceptions, is that we're not here to try to benefit the community and everyone in it.
Yeah, I think you nailed the nail on the head with that. When you're organizing in right to work in the right to work environment, what tends to resonate more with workers? Wages, benefits, training, job stability, or is there something else? Or maybe it's a combination of all of those.
I would say a combination. Where we're at, we do set the wages. I know my scale, and I sent you a picture of it. Compared to other locals, right? It does look low, but I'm in an area where you have open shops paying journeyman electricians anywhere from 15 to maybe 22 or 23 an hour. And then you're lucky if they even have benefits. A lot of them don't. A lot of them may offer a company truck, but that's about it. So when I do talk to individuals, I bring all of that up. You are going to probably make the most money you've ever made with us. You're going to get these benefits where you don't have to decide between paying rent or getting a prescription or going on a date with your spouse.
Yeah.
So when I talk to them, I try to sell the whole package. And I try to sell to them that if nothing else, you're not going to have to sit there and worry about how you're going to be treated or if you come in and the owner's mad, because that is a lot of these guys when they go to work for these open shops, and I worked for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
They make you feel that you should be grateful just to have a job.
That's 100.
Well, it's like I'm a skilled tradesperson, right? Shouldn't you be grateful that I've learned this trade to help your company?
Exactly.
And that's what I try to sell, just a combination of everything.
And I've noticed, even while working non-union, talking to friends that still work non-union, it's kind of a sense of, I wouldn't say, well, job scared is one way to describe it, but it's not so much, they don't want to build you up. They want to keep you at the same playing ground that you've always been on. They don't want to have ultimately competition for themselves or within their organization, which I find sad because it's the complete opposite on the union side, where we have programs that will allow us to advance up if we want to do that. Obviously, you have to seek those out and take initiative, but those thresholds are in place to allow you to basically go as high up as you want. There's no real ceiling. From your perspective, what makes Local 520 stand out in a state where unions often have an uphill battle? Before you start that, I would say from at least an outsider's standpoint, a lot of that would go back to leadership. Would you say that's a safe assumption?
Yeah. No, no. When we came in, and excuse my
Oh,
cat,
no, you're fine.
that was the big thing, right? We had a leader that believed in us and wanted to take a chance on us,
Hmm.
and was allowing us to think outside that box and be like, look, man, y'all know your area, right? Because we're 3.5 hours from Austin, and it is Texas, but that kind of distance, right? It can be night or day. And they knew that, look, if San Angelo's going to thrive, you got to let San Angelo do what they got to do, right? We got to give them the support, and this is what I told them, but we'll pick ourselves up by our own bootstraps. We
Yeah.
can get it done. And it's one of those things, right? Like, I've always been 520. That's the only local I've ever known, and I'm proud of it. And if it's up to me, and I know my sister local here in Texas are going to hate me, but I want the whole state of Texas to be 520.
Yeah.
And that's the view I have, right? That's the pride I have, is that coming in, what we do is good, and it is great for the community. And you just got to run with it. And if it's up to me, I want the whole state of Texas to be 520. I'm going to absorb them all.
That that's awesome. And it's not greedy in any manner. I think every local probably has that same mentality, and I think that's
They should.
yeah.
They should.
I definitely think they should. Uh, what advice would you give to a young electrician, or even a seasoned non-union electrician who's on the fence about joining the IBEW in Texas? Like I keep saying, there's a lot of misinformation. I'm assuming, I don't live in a right-to-work state, but I'm assuming in right-to-work there's probably a uptick in misinformation. But what advice would you give to, I guess, someone considering the union trades?
So, to a young electrician, stick with the trade, and the union will help guide you through it. Right, it's going to teach you those whys and the know-hows of it. Right, you don't want to be an installer with a helper.
Exactly.
You want to be an apprentice that's a journeyman than a journeyman with an apprentice, right? And that's what the union can give you. To that seasoned electrician, I would tell them, don't you think it's time to start getting them benefits so you don't have to work forever? That's what we can give you. You don't need to be, 70 and still having to get up to see how you're going to make ends meet. Get that stability so you can retire and enjoy life.
And that's something, it doesn't matter the local, obviously, like you mentioned earlier, every local has a different pay scale, different benefits package. Regardless of whatever those figures may be, you have your hourly rate, which you're getting paid, and then you have your benefits package, which is a completely set amount of money, if you would say, that's going to retirement, whether it's an annuity, a pension. I know locals vary on how that's dispersed, health insurance, some have vacation funds, some don't. But all of that's being covered by your contractor. It's not being deducted out of your take-home pay. Yeah, you might pay, well, you will pay a small monthly, or not monthly, but working dues assessment. But at the end of the day, those small working assessments in return get you a ton of money in return. So when people say we pay to work, yeah, I mean, technically you can look at it that way, but on the opposite side of the spectrum, say you make $50 an hour, but then you're having to pay for your own health insurance if you're paying into retirement. There's a long list of things that are being deducted. So, I mean, everyone's paying to work. It's just a matter of how you want to look at it. And I would say,
Exactly.
in my perspective, there's a long list of things, but that's one of the biggest differences between union and non-union is not only the higher pay scales, but also the added benefits that we're not having to pay for directly anyways.
Yeah, 100%.
Looking ahead over, I don't know, let's just say the next 5 to 10 years, where do you see Local 520? Maybe in a 5 year term or a 10 year term, however you want to go about it, but where do you hopefully or ideally see Local 520?
So, as a whole, and I'm including Austin, with just the work we're getting, all of that, I see us flourishing. We have a lot of young up and comers that are active. That was one big push with the leadership is that, we're big and growing our own. And so we're training these next young union leaders to take those spots. So I feel very hopeful, proud. I think we're going to flourish and with the work coming. For San Angelo, I think the sky's the limit for us. We're actually looking at getting a data center here.
That's awesome.
I've been working closely with the chamber and following it because we're doing the one in Abilene and the one in Amarillo. And my understanding, those are the 1 and 2 biggest projects in the world.
Yeah.
As well as we've done other ones. So we're about to get one. And then I've heard that if that hits, we're looking at possibly 2 or 3 other big projects.
Yeah.
So I see San Angelo growing and us just keeping that trend, and securing our footing here.
Yeah. I will say, because Central Ohio, where I'm at, popping off left and right with data centers everywhere. Usually, if they build one, they'll end up building campuses upon campuses. So I think once one lands, you guys will be overwhelmed with work, which, I mean, for working purposes, that's excellent. It is very overwhelming, though. Last, if someone was watching this and curious about organizing, leadership, or just getting more involved beyond the job site, what steps would you recommend they take to, I guess, achieve those goals?
Start talking to the local, how you can get involved. Look at stuff on your own. That was one avenue I still do, right? I'm constantly going online looking for free webinars and Zoom trainings. The AFL-CIO puts on a ton of great ones.
They do.
I'm going through Wayne State University through their labor
Awesome.
certificate school. There's a lot of avenues that an individual can get plugged into to either educate themselves on the labor movement and build that backing so they can be more active as well as getting active. And it's just ask how can I get involved, and then do it. If you have an idea and it doesn't go against the IBEW, it doesn't go against your local, man, try to run with it, right? That's the beauty of unions and of us, the IBEW, is that we encourage that creativity, that forward thinking, right? There's more than one way, and excuse me, Billy, to skin a cat, but you got to think outside that box. So just go with it, right? take that chance. We're all brothers and sisters, and no one's going to look down on you. And if they do, well, you need to kind of remind them, hey, man, we're all people here, right? And if you're my brother, you should be helping me, not looking down. So,
I agree. Like you said, being proactive, that's one of the reasons I started my pages and as a whole was one to be proactive, but to bring awareness. And that's something I hope more of all the locals, whether or all the local or union trades as a whole, they get more involved on social media. We obviously need the electricians, we need plumbers, and all these individuals, whether it used to be just young kids, but now you walk into a restaurant and every 60, 70-year-old individuals there scrolling on their phone. I think the best place to reach them is through their phone, through their tablet, through their laptop. So I think having an open platform of some sort is something a lot of locals need to incorporate. And I appreciate you from, I call it the business side, taking the time to do this. I've reached out to a few, I haven't really reached out to many people on the business side, but I have had a few people from the business side reach out and then just kind of ghost me afterwards, which more power to them. But I do appreciate you taking the time, especially being on the business side. It's a different perspective. And it's a much appreciated perspective. I'm hoping as time goes on, more and more of the business side gets involved. Because, like I said, I think social media will play a big role in continuing the union trades as a whole. I might be very wrong with that statement, but I believe if we want to continue to build, social media is going to be one of the biggest avenues to do that.
yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. We got to adapt. And I thank you for having me because that is one of those things. And in the position I'm in, it's me. I have an office manager and then my office cat, Billy, right? So I don't get the luxury of deciding what I can do, right? I got to be an organizer. I got to be an assistant business agent. I have to be our business development.
Yeah.
I have to be our political guy. And so with that, right, I want to talk to people about this. I want to spread that word, and I want to especially spread 520
Yeah.
and San Angelo. So I thank you for giving me that opportunity and letting me come on and talk about it, man. I was excited. I really wanted to do this, so thank you.
No, I greatly appreciate it. And like I said, I hope more, on the business side, I hope more people on the business side take the initiative because at the end of the day, we're all dues paying members. And I believe rather than just reading a quick article online or through a newspaper, it would be nice to hear from the people that our dues are helping, I guess, with their lifestyle, if that makes sense. It's their salary. So it would be nice to hear viewpoints from their perspective. And I think a lot of members would appreciate that because I feel like there's a large disconnect between everyone. But
Definitely see that, I can't.
yeah.